So the first thing to think about then, when we think about our moral intuitions, is how they kind of work from a psychological perspective. And to get an understanding of this, we're going to need some background information about how the brain works more generally, when it comes to making quick decisions. And so on this slide, I'm just going to present you with some information about um, theories about how the brain works, which derive from the work of two psychologists who are called Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, um, who are very pioneering and have a lot of things that are very interesting to say about how the human brain works when it comes to intuitive decision making. So they pioneered this literature on what's called heuristics and biases. Most of what we're going to be focusing on today is in the heuristics literature. So thinking about rules that the brain uses to make shortcuts and make decisions quickly. So as I said, yeah, the human brain um, kind of works by taking shortcuts, and they have a lot of evidence to show this. And there's a distinction that gets made, at least in Kahneman's work, between the system one brain and the system two brain. So the system one brain is associated with quick decision making. So it's automatic, instinctive, and associative. So this is where our intuitions will be kind of coming from, whether in the moral domain or in other domains. So this is kind of a quick first response to a problem, but which is likely to be something that has more errors in it. Whereas system two brain is slower, more deliberative, and more logical, and more likely to be accurate, but more resource intensive and more deliberate when it comes to the amount of time it takes. So one of the things that some of the experiments from Kahneman and Tversky have shown is that our intuitions, at least in other areas of life, are vulnerable to what's called framing effects. So the way that we respond and give answers to certain problems is vulnerable to the way that those problems are framed to us. So the way that we are given information, so even if this is effectively the same information, our intuitions can be kind of manipulated predictably when it comes to how this information is presented. So one of the experiments that they use to show this is what's called the kind of Asian disease case in the psychological literature. And some of the information about this is listed on the slide here, so I'm just going to read this for you. So the experiment takes place where one group of subjects is, well, two groups of subjects are given the choice to think about actions that can be taken to resolve the effect of a pandemic. So one group of subjects are choosing between two programs which are designed to combat disease that is expected to kill 600 people. If the first program is adopted, 200 people will be saved. And if the other program is adopted, there is a 1/3 probability that 600 people will be saved, and a 2/3 probability that no people will be saved. So this is the way that this is framed. So look specifically at the language here. 200 people will be saved versus 600 people potentially being saved, and a 2/3 probability that nobody is saved. The second group of subjects are given the information this way, where they're choosing between programs designed in terms of lives lost. So if one program is adopted, 400 people will die, and if the other program is adopted, there's a 1/3 probability that nobody will die, and a 2/3 probability that 600 people will die. So the clever students among you will have realized that this bullet point here and this bullet point here are effectively saying the same information, but what's the only thing that's different is the framing. So in the first case, the framing being focused on saving lives, whereas in the second case, the framing being focused on lives being lost. But saying that, out of 600 people, 200 people saved versus 400 people will die is saying the same information, just but putting different stress on different areas. So the results of this experiment showed that when alternative outcomes were phrased positively in terms of life saved, subjects preferred the certain option. So people were happy to go for the option with 200 people being saved slash 400 people dying more when it's put in terms of lives being saved. However, when outcomes are phrased negatively in terms of life lost, then the risky option is preferred. And so this is a kind of staggering result in terms of what it shows about how our intuitions work and how our kind of brains work generally. So it shows that our decisions are often affected by things that should be irrelevant to those decisions. So the thing that should really matter in this case is the probabilities at hand and the number of lives at hand. Those are the things that should make a difference in terms of how we are making this decision. But the experiment here shows that that's not the case in terms of how people actually work. People's responses to the situations of this kind are influenced by what seems like irrelevant information, which is which is namely how the information is presented to them, whether it's presented positively in terms of life saved or negatively in terms of life lost. And there's loads of other examples of cases of this kind that Kahneman and Tversky dug up through their experiments over the years. I really recommend there's a book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow, which evidences loads and loads of different ways in which the human brain has weird quirks like this. But we're going to kind of leave it there as that's our background for now.